Let's take a look at one of the most exciting new tools added to Photoshop CS6. If you click and hold for 2 seconds, or right-click on the Spot Healing Brush tool, the one that looks like a Band-Aid, you'll see nested underneath, out of the 5 tools that you can choose, there's a new one called Content Aware Move. When I select Content Aware Move, I'm going to use my mouse to click and drag and create a rough selection around this couple. My goal with this selection is to pick them up and move them to the left side of the image. Now, in the past, I might have used the cloning stamp tool to do this. With the cloning stamp tool, it's a lot of work to pick portions of the mountain, to cover them up, and I would probably need to jump them or copy them to a new layer to be able to move them. With this tool, once you've let go, all you do is get anywhere inside the marching ants, the selected area, click and drag, and move them to the new desired location. You even get a little indicator telling you how far left and right you've moved it. I've moved roughly 3.33 inches, but I haven't moved up and down at all. When I let go, a very sophisticated algorithm kicks in, figuring out how to clone them away from where they were and blend them to the new spot where I've dragged them. Outstanding! I'm going to choose Select Deselect, and only the most trained eye would see any evidence that I've moved them in this original photo. Now, there's more cleanup work that you can do, but for now, that did an excellent job. So let's take a look at a harder image. I'm going to select this green dress photo. And before I jump in to make my move, I'm going to explain why I want to move myself to the right side of this shot. If you click on the crop tool and simply touch one of the handles that would let you crop, you'll see it kicks in the rule of thirds guide that was added in Photoshop CS5. Now, any trained photographer knows to keep an eye on the rule of thirds when shooting to create more interesting or compelling shots. If you look back at your childhood photos, unless your parent was a photographer, you'll notice they probably made their best attempt to perfectly center you or your siblings in every shot. That doesn't create an interesting image. Well, depending on what you're doing. But looking at this, ideally my face should be at the intersection of this 9-slice guide, or what they call a PowerPoint. That draws the viewer's eye to the interesting subject or spot. Another great spot is down here in the lower left or upper left. So having said that, I'll go back to the Content Aware Move. I won't crop the image because I was only using it to show you those guides. I'll click and drag, making a rough selection, trying not to get too close to the object I'm moving. Starting back where I began, so I choose how to close that selection, and then clicking and dragging till my feet almost touch the edge of the photo. When I let go, again that very sophisticated algorithm kicks in, analyzes where I was, clones me out, and then repositions me and blends me into the background that was there. Let's see how this tool does. Very well, with the exception of my arm. It looks like the flowers are kind of creeping over the edge of my arm. And I've got a little grass here, but that's easy enough to fix. So I will undo that or step backward. And this time, instead of using the medium adaptation, meaning just roughly try to keep the object intact, I will either try strict or very strict. If I try strict or very strict and move, Photoshop does a more complex analysis, attempting to keep the object you're moving intact. I don't mind this progress bar and analyzing so much because this is saving me hours of time that I used to use on the cloning stamp tool to accomplish image movement like this. And my arm is perfectly intact. I've got a little bit of oddness here, but I'll show you how to fix it. everything else looks perfect. And I've got a little bit of grass in the flowers. Here's my favorite tool to repair or disguise image edits, the patch tool. I also call this the anti-aging tool because it wipes out dark circles under the eyes, wrinkles, crow's feet, double chins in some cases, moles, blemishes, but I'm going to use this to repair the grass. And what I can do is decide that I want to select this grass. The algorithm chose that part of the image to repair where I was, and replace it with these flowers. When I let go, Photoshop will do a contrast adjust, putting those flowers in that position. There's lots of different ways to go about this, but let's try the patch tool on this tape that's in the plants, being very careful just around the dress. And I'll drag up slightly, saying use this portion of the image to repair that. You could also move left and right, but my goal is to try to keep these fairly aligned. I let go, and it blends. Both of those tools were based on, well, actually, the new Content-Aware Move tool was based on the technology of the patch, and the Content-Aware Fill tool was based on the technology of the patch. So I can keep patching to repair any small image areas, but I think it's done great, with the exception of this. If I go to the History Brush tool, the History Brush always paints back the original. And earlier I was on a large brush, so we'll aim for a brush size somewhere in the 40s. Any number between 40 and 50 is fine. You simply click the arrow here and dial your size. And then I'll click away and hit Command plus or Control plus to zoom in. And all I'm going to do is paint close to the hair. The History Brush reveals the original flowers that were there. And if I hit Command 0 or Control 0 to fit in window, no one would know that I've completely moved myself in this shot, and now it's a far more compelling and interesting shot. So let's go to this last shot. I want to take this guy and make this shot more interesting by moving him either to the left of the photo or to the right of the photo. So I'll choose Select, Load Selection, load the guy channel that I've saved in this image or the guy selection. I'll click in the middle and drag to the far right and let go where I'd like him to land. Photoshop calculates how to wipe him out, and there is a little bit of oddity here, so I'm going to undo. Command-Option-Z or Control-Alt-Z will multiple undo. This selection's a little too tight, so under Select, Modify, Expand, I can add 20 pixels to the outside, making a looser selection, and then try moving him again. And let go of my mouse, and see how it does blending. Far better. Now any halos can also be removed by painting with the History Brush. So I can choose Select, Deselect. Clean up any evidence with the Patch tool. So here, maybe I want to patch where he was, away from the wall. And maybe I don't like that vent and drain there. I'll make a patch, move it up, kind of line up the surface or texture of the wall, and it does a beautiful job. Command plus or Control plus to zoom in, and let's repair a bit of this grass with this grass, just lining it up as I let go. Fabulous. Little evidence here. Fixed. Now as I hold down spacebar and come over to the guy, I could use my History Brush and simply paint the original data back where it was. If I have too big of a brush, it may get a ghosted edge, so I can undo and dial my brush size down and just paint more carefully. Now there are a lot of other ways to clean this up, and I'm not going to bother to take all the time to make these edges perfect, but you could see especially here around his legs how I'm just bringing back the original shot. If I go too far, I undo and just try again. I could even make a selection and fill with history. And the last trick I'll show is to get the original window back. I can click once and shift-click to clean up that edge. So you can see how you can completely blend away and get a perfect edge on this guy where he was moved. Take some time and see if you can experiment with the new content-aware move with images of your own. Do some cleanup with the patch tool and bring back original parts of the image with the history brush tool. Good luck.